Hey there guys, gals, and non-binary pals, it's DMG and welcome back to Blitz, and today we are going to have a back to basics video for a map review, this time on Desert Sands. So without further ado, let's get into it. Now, Desert Sands looks a lot like Oasis Palms, however they are very dissimilar in that it is a much tougher ask to make a good decision on this map in terms of the start of the game. And people say, "Oh, you can recover from bad situations," but making a call on this map is so important on learning how to read a team, right? Now, there's such a interesting way to play this map because both sides are viable. I mean, I can't say both sides are completely viable, but you have to be psychologically there in terms of this clairvoyance you have about the other team's actions, right? Now, what do I mean by that? Because you can play either the town side or the desert side. Now, I know that scares a lot of people when you say town. Town is a very dirty word on my channel, but the important thing to remember is that if you can read teams well, if you can predict Red's actions well, you will easily win Desert Sands every time. And it really depends on where they're all going, right? So let's say you have a team of all heavies and they have a team of all heavies. Well, you're probably going to want to go to the town, right? Because heavies will most likely be in the town, and most likely, since if you're the uni, right, you'll know how to drive your heavy tank and will be able to side scrape and whittle down your opponents. Let's say you have a team of 7 mediums and they have a team of 7 mediums, right? And granted, these are just hypothetical examples. You want to go to the desert side because you want to engage the mediums there, and there are small berms you can work for Soviet mediums. There are gun depression hills or much larger places or that require more gun depression. You know, for your STB1s, your Pattons, stuff like that, Pershings. But then what happens if you have a mix? Because it's rarely ever all one or the other, right? And frankly, you know, if you have lots of tank destroyers, this is not the map, right? Tank destroyers on Desert Sands I find to be quite useless. I mean, you can sit a tank destroyer or two back here and fire at people, but you know, you have to have people spotting for you, and sometimes that becomes quite a difficult ask of your team, even at tier 10. So I would say in the public meta, it's better to go without tank destroyers on this map, because tank destroyers do get caught out and they're just kind of useless. There's not many. I mean, there's a location back here, right, for a tank destroyer, but it's so uncovered, right? You know, you're just gonna get shot at and killed. I'm sure you've all seen that spot before, used by your common 183s and such. Now, as I was saying, most likely there's going to be a mix, right? So, let's say each team has 4 heavies and 3 meds. Or 4 heavies, 3 lights, something like that. You know, 3 tanks that spawn over on this side, 4 tanks that spawn over on the town side. Now, how do you decide which way you want to go? Well, you could split, and you could engage 4-on-4 or 3-on-3. And 3-on-3. However, what happens if they pull all their mediums over here, or they pull all their heavies over here, or if they mismatch you or overmatch you one way? Let's say they take, let's say there's like an IS-7 or 2, and they start rolling over to A to engage your mediums. Then it becomes a 5-on-3. You die, and most likely you won't be able to push through C fast enough with your 4 tanks against their 3, right? Because this is kind of a stalemate situation, and it does require who is better at side scraping and angling, and who has the bigger gun, usually. Now, reading that decision, right? Because if you're in a heavy tank, right? And this is just a kind of a general rule of thumb that I have developed. If you're in a heavy tank, right, you want to engage tanks frontally. You don't want to engage tanks from your sides. Heavy tanks have their strongest armor on the front, usually. Now, there are a few exceptions to this. I can't really think of any right now, but I would say 9 times or 99 times out of 100, heavy tanks are better engaging frontally. You don't want to engage people on your side, because once lights and mediums get to your side, right? Let's say I'm side scraping off this building right here, just in any kind of engagement, right? If lights and mediums are already on your side, I don't care how safe your front is, you're kind of screwed. But if you keep the game in front of you in a heavy tank and you engage frontally, lights and mediums don't have a lot of power over you. So let's say you're in an E100. Sometimes it may actually be wise, or if especially this goes for faster heavy tanks or gun depression heavy tanks that can get out to the desert or use the hills, right? But I'm just going to take an E100, as it doesn't really seem like a good choice for this map. But let's say you take an E100 out here, right? And you support your 3-on-3 med engagement. Now, what does that bring? That brings an enormous block of armor, hit points, and alpha to the table. And while the terrain doesn't necessarily favor the E100 in the best way, what you do bring is this enormous block of firepower that can kill 3 tanks. Because then what happens is that you create a numbers overmatch, and that's the trick to this match. Where can you create a numbers overmatch and win? Right? Because if you can kill all the other meds over here and take A, more power to you. Because I'll tell you something, B is near damn impossible to cap, right? Now, in competitive, it's a different story, right? Because you're starting to get with voice communications and learning how to go double cap and protect other tanks, right? But in the public meta, that's just not a thing. There is no, I mean, there'd have to be some kind of miracle of communication in public matches for someone to cap B successfully to break the game out of a neutral state, right? But if you can create a numbers overmatch on one side, right? So let's say you bring your E100 over here, and create a 4-on-3, and then you go and kill. And yeah, you may take a few hits in E100, but that's, as a big German super heavy, okay, yeah, maybe that's kind of your job to take incoming fire. So you clear the side of their 3 meds. So then it becomes most likely a 7-on-3, or a 6-on-3, or a 6-on-4, because maybe the other enemy tanks have taken out your, or have taken out one of your heavies on the town side, right? And that's given that you split. But like I said, do you understand what I mean by saying create a numbers overmatch? See where the red is weakest, right? Because let's say you're in a tier 8 game, right? And you're driving like an IS-5 or something like that. And you have an IS-3 with you, and an IS-6, right? Let's just all Russian. I like Russian heavies at tier 8. They're quite easy to drive. Let's say you have 3 Russian heavy tanks, right? And you're in a top tier game. And you have, like I said, IS-3, IS-5, IS-6. But you see the other team has like an AMX 5100, like 2 AMX 5100s, an IS, and then another heavy tank, let's say like a Tiger 1, right? Now, the town area favors strong armor profiles, and while you are at a numbers disadvantage in this town area, I mean, guys, like, if it's an AMX 5100, an IS, and like a Carnarvon or something, right? And granted, the Carnarvon's good, but just not in this environment. You're not gonna... Don't go to the town area, because you'll just be able to rush through and kill everyone. It's all about analyzing specific tank strengths and weaknesses, right? Because if it's lightly armored heavy tanks, go rush through this area and just kill them before they get across. I mean, because sometimes I'll tell you something, someone is bound to be stupid and go to this town area alone. Like, if you all rush one side, I'll tell you something, the amount of teams that will just start driving when the match starts is ridiculous. And I mean, granted, I always, say a direction, right? And, some people get annoyed by that. But guys, having some sort of plan, even if it's, just one direction, right? Is people going to fangirl over that name? I don't know. But having some kind of general strategy, right? Left or right. It's not specific really at all. It's just this general, herd the sheep mentality here. And you're thinking, how does that help? But at least you have a plan. At least all 7 people are going in the right direction. But as for the other team, right? They're most likely going to split, or at least one person's going to think that this is a good idea. And they're going to go to the town, or they're going to go off alone. It doesn't matter what direction. So if you can get everyone going in one direction, or create some kind of numbers overmatch somewhere, right? Because let's say they have 2 heavies here, right? And you have 4 heavies with a few fast meds. Call everyone to the heavy side and see if you can cut off a tank before it crosses. Especially if it's a slow heavy tank. Let's say you're talking about like a T150 or something like that, and you have a few KV-1S on your team. Rush through and see if you can catch this T150 before he crosses into the desert. Or if he goes alone, right, you're going to kill him anyway. You're just going to meet him a little bit sooner. Now, you're thinking, okay, well, all this numbers overmatch stuff is great, and you've given a few examples, but why? What? Like, if you had to recommend a side, what would it be? Well, it's going to be the desert side. Doesn't matter whether it's supremacy or encounter. Why do I like desert? Desert provides a, how should I say, a certain degree of cover. Now, if you win the desert side, right, you get A. There is no way heavy tanks are going to be coming from C trying to get A. I mean, granted, miracles do happen sometimes, but it's unlikely. Now, there's a few spots where you can reset B, this being one of them here. This bush is extremely important. If someone starts capping B, in my medium tanks and light tanks, in here, load the gold, you're unspotted, fire away. This works on the other side too with this bush. However, I don't like it as much. It still works, but it's not as good, right? Because I feel like you're still a little bit spotted, and you're poking your front over, right? Instead of trying to go side on it, which makes you a harder target to hit when you're moving back and forth, right? So that bush right there, the one that I'm looking at, is so important for being able to reset B. Also, if you're in a heavy tank, like, right, this is your IS-7s. If you can just sit here, you will ricochet everything, and you will just be spraying from your turret over at B. They will not be able to penetrate you. Your lower glacis is not showing as this slight little rise covers it. And it'll be so difficult to cap B for the other team. But at least you'll have A under control. And if you can get to A before they get to C, and if you have fast mediums or lights, they're most likely going to get to A before the heavy tanks get to C. Now, a few other spots. If they go to the dunes, this is us. I mean, you can sit here, and by here I mean right next to the cap. This is mirrored on both sides, but this is great for your T-62As, Object 140s, Pattons, medium tanks that have strong turrets and decently sloped upper glacis plates. Most people will like to try and cap the base early, so you just come here, you poke on them like that, and you pop them one. Pretty easy. Now, another thing you can do, which is one of my personal favorite moves, is drive onto this plane like this. I don't actually mean climb onto the plane. You can't actually do that. But to go like this. Now, if you have like an STB-1, you can go in this small divot. I wouldn't even say divot, but use this small opening here to put shots through. And you can kind of do the same thing on this side here. But this plane area, if you have a taller medium tank like your Panther 2 or your 88, your Panther 88, put it here, and you'll just have this haul down impunity as you move back and forth, and you'll just stop their advances completely. And you can't even be hit, right? So more power to you. Another good spot if you don't have a lot of gun depression is in your T-62As. You go right here. The plane's not really your thing if you have no gun depression. So just kind of go around here and spray from a haul down location. Granted, the berm does start to decline severely around here. So you will be exposing your side just barely, but just keep moving back and forth and you should be all right most of the time. Now, if you want to catch people early, and this is another thing, like if you have a lot of fast light tanks or mediums, right, or stuff like that, and you think they're all going to go to the heavy side, I just push right through the middle, and I just try and spot people. Because if I can catch one person that's trying to get across the rails to the other side, the better, because you can kill them. Like, you can track them you can track them as they try and go across, and they will die, or at least whittle them down to a point of health where it's like they kind of become combat ineffective, and not even a minute has gone by in the game, right? And what's stupid is, I swear to God, I don't know why people do this. I don't know why people just turn like this and go drive across. Instead, this is what people do. They'll drive forward, right? And they'll be like, oh crap, my team is actually going to the town, right? Lights and mediums will do this all the time. My team's going to the town, and then they'll try and do this. They'll try and go up here. And by this time, you're spotted. You're spotted right about here, actually, down where this truck is. And as you start to crest, you just get lit up. I don't know why people try and climb over this thing. This is an illusion that you're gonna escape. This is like this is like a trap door. You know, you think it's safe, and oh hello, you know, you're dead, and you know, as you're going over, your butt's exposed like this. Oh, there's some easy HE right into the underbelly of your tank, huh? Yeah, I mean, not a good time, but that's how you play the desert side, essentially. It's just, like I said, it's all about creating a numbers overmatch. I mean, there are haul down positions everywhere. And I showed you the most important ones, the one near A, the one at the base of the plane down here, and then the one near the plane exactly. Those are the three main spots I use. Also, and the bushes right there to reset B. Also, there's this interesting location here with this bush. This is called the ear, or at least the Russians call it the ear. And you saw this at Pramo Twister 1 when Object 140s were the king of the meta. Where you frequently see Pramo using these Object 140s in this location, right? Or it was always Object 140. Why would I say T62A? But Pramo would frequently use Object 140 here. I remember seeing it in that location, although it didn't have the greatest amount of gun depression. More frequently, though, you'd see it used in this ear over here. And this just doesn't apply to Pramo. This applies to like the Russians, the EUs, and this is something you frequently. This is actually considered a competitive spot for Desert Sands, desert side. This ear area, this allows, like, this works for low gun depression tanks because like you're not poking all the way. You don't have to poke your side. You can still poke your front like this and fire. This works perfectly with your Object 140, T62A, E50M. I mean, you can work with a Patton, but it's better with low-profile tanks that are just smaller. And that's really all I got for the desert side. It's not all that bad. Now, why is the desert side better than the town side? Because remember, for the town side, right, it's just like Middleburg in this sense. It doesn't matter whether it's encounter, because the encounter cap circle is right where B is. And man, there's no way you're capping on encounter. Someone will spot you and kill you. Now, this is why I would say desert is better than town, especially in the public meta, because you get to decide which way you want to attack. They cannot cover both sides of the map, right? You can attack through this lane, attack through the lane on the other side of the map, or attack through the lane in the middle. Of course, don't go over those ramps. That's dangerous. Now, there's no way they can cover both of these sides, right? Even if they try and split equally, it'll be a 3 and a 4. 3 on this side and 4 on that side, or 4 on this side, 3 on the far side over there. That allows you to isolate somebody or push through the middle and just start pinching them, right? This allows you to create the numbers overmatch again. You know, especially if you've whittled something down to a little bit of health. I mean, after a while, once you get numbers overmatch, eventually it'll be apparent, because you'll see, you know, you and a few teammates, you'll just kind of be like knocking on the door here. You're saying, you're just waiting for the right moment, and then someone's going to make a mistake. Someone will leave, someone will try and fire, and then you just push over and you kill. Now, what else is important about this is that that's assuming that they split in a 4-3 fashion. What happens if they split in a 5-2 or a 6-1 or a 7-0 fashion, right? What happens if they cap C and some of them stay in the town to protect B, right, to side scrape off of them, and then the others go all the way over to this side, right? Most likely, your team will be split between this side, that side, and the middle. Now, what's important here is that the sniping locations, you can snipe across. This is so easy, and it's easier to snipe across on this side than it is on this side, because there's more bushes, more terrain you have to kind of worry about. Here, if people are trying to push up like this, right? And let's say I'm the enemy tank right here, and I'm just trying to keep the people on the other side of the rails at bay. All the people on the other side, right, that are going to push over will be unspotted, and they will have shots into your side and you will be perma-spotted. And the nearest amount of cover is all the way back here, which means your drive wheels are exposed in a heavy tank for at least 6-7 seconds easily, and that's enough time for me to put in 1 to 2 shots, or a teammate to put in 1 to 2 shots, or that's enough time for you to get tracked and be dead. So this is why the dune side is better. Less terrain you have to deal with, easier to attack from, all that good stuff. Now, in the event you all push town, there are a few spots you can use. There are really only 2 main locations or maybe 3 locations, right? You can always sit in the back in your heavy tank and just wait for people to push over. It's okay. I mean, that's not really what I want to do. But the 2 main locations are near the front. This is my personal favorite right here. If I'm in an IS-4, an E100, E75, this is all you right here. Firing at people who like to sit in the back. People who push across to C get hit. People who want to push over to this corner get hit. People who try to poke around this building get hit. Only really works for tanks that have good side armor, so this is not a good location for like a T-32 or a T-34 or a T-110E5. You want to take your E-75 here, like I said, or your IS-4, something that has good side armor and can angle out to get shots. The other only good location here is right near the cap circle. Now, this allows you to accumulate, possibly accumulate points while putting pressure on them. And this is, again, it's all about side scraping heavy tanks. This is like a mouse perfectly, right? Maybe not, I mean, you could get away with an FV2 and 5B here, but the weak side armor may not be enough to sustain continued exposure. And if you cap if you cap C, you start accumulating points, and you can just kind of hold them off in this area. You don't need to push through them. Now, of course, if it's encounter, right, you just sit here and you just keep grinding them out in this location. But really, that's all there is, you know. That's the only 2 locations I ever use in the town. And granted, other people will just try and sit behind corners and poke, but, you know, people will always do that. But that's Desert Sands in a nutshell, guys. Learn where to create your numbers overmatch and understand, you know, do they have armored heavy tanks? Do they have weakly armored heavy tanks that will try and go across? Try and understand where the tanks are going on the map before the battle starts and make a call whether to, you know, I mean, whether either to stay split. I mean, granted, I'd like everyone to go to one side so we get the greatest amount of numbers overmatch, right? And in the event they go to the same side with the same amount of numbers, it's just still just going to be a 7-on-7, and then you can work from there. But at least you know where everyone is, and then you can start developing the game and trying to shaping it in your likeness. However, the thing to keep in mind is that you have to also, you know, do what's best for your tank, because if you're the good player, right, you want to put yourself in the most advantageous position possible to win. And if you can kill tanks faster than your teammates can kill tanks faster, sometimes it may be better to call desert even when you have 4 heavies, 3 mediums, because then you still engage all the other mediums frontally, and at least you control one side of the map. So all these things just to keep in mind. Learn your matchups, learn how to create overmatches on one side, and then just proceed with the game from there. And like I said, the desert side is probably the better side, but you can get away with the town side if they go to the town side. So a lot of different things to keep in mind. But anyways, that's all I have for you today. If you like that content on Desert Sands, please hit that like button and subscribe. And if you didn't, please leave your constructive criticism in the comment section. As always, I appreciate the opportunity to share my passion with you today, and I hope to see you next time.